Why pay the regular price when you can save money on every purchase with WagerBucks at both WagerTalk and SportsMemo? WagerBucks are now eligible for use on not just daily, 3-day, and 7-day passes, but all long-term and seasonal packages up to 1 full year. There are tons of options available for every budget and size of bettor. From low as $100 gets $110, all the way up to $2,500 gets you $3,000. Save every day on every pick you buy with WagerBucks.
Tuesday, January 18th. It is Tuesday, January 18th. No NFL football, but we got a ton of basketball, a ton of hockey to talk about. We're going to do so today here on WagerTalk Today. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez this week, but I am joined always by my co-host, Rocksteady Teddy Covers. And Teddy, before we get to what you learned last night, I would let people know what they're going to learn today. We've got a great show. Got Andy Lang leading off with us, the prop master, also the $2 capper at WagerTalk.com today. Andy Lang's going to talk some football props and also some big picture props for the near future here. Some prop trends over the next couple of weeks. So whether you're joining us later on replay here, be sure to check out Andy's segment. Some great long-term investment ideas here. Got your big game breakdown in between with college basketball, Big Ten matchup, Wisconsin, Northwestern, and then some pucks. Andrew McInnis, NHL expert, with the Hurricanes, Bruins, Canucks, Predators. And then, of course, we finish off, as we do every Tuesday, with Dave Sharapan, the sportsbook consigliere. But Teddy, before we get to all that, I want to know if you learned anything. We had our fifth home playoff winner, fifth divisional winner, win of the 6 games this past weekend last night. Cardinals-Rams, not much of a game. What else did you learn?
So there's something that we're going to have to take forward to next year from what we saw this year in the NFL playoffs. Of course, this is the first time that we've had a 6-game wild card weekend as opposed to a 4-game wild card weekend. That means 2 extra teams get in. But more than any other thing that we saw this weekend, and what we saw last night, in my mind, cemented that in at least my thought process. A late season NFL slump equals no chance in the playoffs. All right. There were 2 teams that entered the playoffs in the midst of a late season slump. The Patriots, and they got bombed. And more than getting bombed, the confidence level wasn't there. The swagger wasn't there for New England. And last night for Arizona was the exact same thing. They were never in the game, but that swagger that you look for, that confidence level, that body language that tells you, hey, this team's ready to go, wasn't there for New England, wasn't there for Arizona. So maybe something, again, to keep in mind for next year. Those late season NFL slumps matter, and they certainly mattered over wild card weekend. Arizona, not the same team in January as they were back in September and October. What about you, Steve? What did you learn last night?
Well, just kind of to piggyback on the thought there, when you and I started 25 years ago, in the 90s, those teams that were coming in cold, the teams that had the extra buys and stuff, they often did well, actually. There were a lot of angles which were kind of contrarian back in the day. That stopped working about 10, 15 years ago. We saw the Steelers and the Packers both make wild card runs all the way to the Super Bowl about a decade ago. And I think one of the reasons maybe is because teams pass more now. It's not smash mouth playoff football like it used to be. So there's more precision. So I want to get your thoughts, Teddy, on the team that's been the best team in the NFL this year. Green Bay, not only did they have last week off, but they didn't have to really play the week before either. Do you think the Packers might be a little flat? Is that a concern now, something that you look at differently than maybe a decade ago?
It's always a concern. The teams that sat at home while other teams were playing are out of their normal rhythm. So it's always an issue. It's always something you want to be aware of. And the matchup for Green Bay is something of a concern as well. San Fran and that power running game has given the Packers all kinds of problems in recent seasons. So you put both those factors together, yeah, you can make a case for San Fran against Green Bay. And certainly, even though the early money did come for Tennessee, we're seeing a fair bit of market support for the Bengals at the current price. So the number 1 seeds, Packers and Titans. You're right. In decades past, in years past, they were almost automatic bet-ons in these situations. The team looks good the previous week, wild card weekend, the team laying at home and wait is going to come out and smack them. That might not, I would say one of the 2 number 1 seeds goes down this week. Wouldn't shock me in the slightest.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point too. I mean, Ralph mentioned this on some other shows. Ralph was on last week. He had the 5 and the 10-year trends here for wild card games, and the unders were like a 67% play the last decade.
And
Obviously
they
now
hit
it's a little different.
67% this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're close, right? Definitely some of them were
Sure.
close to like the opening closing line. Like that Tampa Bay one was really sneaky because it went over. It went from 49 to 46, closed 47, landed 46 or whatever. But the one that jumped out to me, Teddy, once again, going back to how good the divisional winners did, home teams went 5-1. And one thing Ralph had pointed out over the last decade is I think home favorites just straight up were like 10-10. They weren't even barely 500 as winning outright. Went 5-1 this week. Every team was favored, which is unusual as well. And of course, it's the first time ever that we've had 6 divisional winners hosting all wildcard teams. That format had never happened before. So, there again, Ted, something we have to change a little bit when we're looking at past trends, right? Not everything's equal going forward.
Sure, and that's always the challenge, is that the betting marketplace does not stay static. All right, it changes over time, and the things the betting marketplace reacts to changes over time, and the way various teams play in certain situations changes over time. So as a handicapper, you have to be aware of what the current status quo is, and then decide if that's the way this game is likely to play out or not so much.
Yeah, just looking at Ralph's chart from last week, home favorites for the last 11 years had gone 20-15 straight up. They were just 10-10 straight up, as I said, the last 6 seasons. They went 5-1 this weekend. So obviously this different format did make a difference. We'll bring in Andy Lang, prop master. Andy, I know you do more props than necessarily sides and totals. Just curious how the first weekend of the NFL playoffs treated you, if it was solid for the props like always, if you saw anything different, and how you maybe approach these layoffs as well for teams.
Well, yeah, the props really mirrored the results of the games. Like the Patriots, those props were a disaster. If you were holding overs on, Cardinals players, those were a disaster. So we did cash some touchdown props. I was on Friday and gave out 3 touchdown props. Those went 2-1. So we're real happy with those. But I'm going to be cautious going into this weekend. We've got some injuries on Tampa Bay's offensive line that could affect a lot of props. And we saw a couple blowout scenarios that really ruined some props. And then the turnovers and touchdowns, we saw, several just crazy plays that took away some possessions in that Cardinals and Rams game. So I would just say with the NFL props, proceed with caution this weekend. There's no need to force anything. So my weekend was about 50-50. It was nothing too crazy awesome, nothing too crazy bad. So, but I will have limited plays this weekend. And as always, if you're going to take an over, take it early in the week. The lines are going to move on the overs. So if you like an under, wait till the day of. If you like an over, take it as soon as the prop comes out.
Yeah, and we always get more public money in the playoffs, of course, and the public bets overs in general, whether it be sides, totals, or props. So that's good advice. Got a little football talk in there. Of course, we'll have more NFL talk between me and Teddy the rest of the week with some other guests as we get closer to Saturday and Sunday's divisional playoff games. But Andy, you are the prop master. You also happen to be the $2 capper at WagerTalk.com for $2 Tuesday. So you definitely want to check out Andy's best play tonight for just $2. But we're going to take before we get to an actual usable, actionable prop, want to take a big picture look at give me 3 kind of play on play against guys, however you want to approach it here over the next couple of weeks. Some long-term investment advice here in the NBA as far as the prop market goes.
Yeah, excited to be the $2 Tuesday. I was a $2 Tuesday early in the NFL season. We cashed a 5% play, so hoping to replicate those results. We only have 2 NBA games tonight, so I don't have a ton of free plays. So I thought I would just look at some of these 3 things that everyone can cash over the next couple weeks, and I really believe in these. So I would jot these down or keep them in memory. The first to look at is now that Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo are back, we're going to look at PJ Tucker under his points, rebounds, and assist totals. So starting November 2nd through December 11th, he went under this total in 13 out of 18 games. That was when Bam and Jimmy were playing. And then he had this huge over surge where they were not playing. And he did a great job playing inside. But we saw his points, rebounds, assist total. He was it was an over machine. So last night, Bam comes back. Jimmy Butler's playing. His PRA number was 16.5, and he goes back to 5 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist. So as soon as those 2 guys entered the lineup, his stats just fell off a cliff. So we're going to have about a week or so to take his under on his points, rebounds, and assists until the books really adjust to these lineups. The next one is Devin Booker. This guy has got this trend where he really likes padding his stats against bad teams. So we'll take his over on points against bad teams and under against good teams. So his points total recently went crazy last night. That was a client cash. Detroit, he had 30 points against the Pacers, 35 points. New Orleans, 33. Played Oklahoma City twice. He had 38 and 30. But then when he plays these better teams that are decent on defense or at least competitive, he goes under. He went under against Toronto. He went under against the Clippers, went under against the Celtics, went under against the Warriors. So we're seeing a real clear trend where Devin Booker likes taking apart these bad teams. And now we got DeAndre Ayton with an ankle issue. So that's even more shots available for Devin Booker. And then the third one, James Harden. It's the Kyrie Irving effect. He's going over his points at home and under on the road. So in the 3 games that Harden has played with Kyrie on the road, he's gone under his point total, scored 22, 25, and 18. But in the last 3 home games without Kyrie, Harden's gone over with 26, 26, and 27. So now they don't have Durant. We saw it yesterday. James Harden comes under his total when Kyrie is in the lineup, and Kyrie goes over his point total. So James Harden, when he's at home, you got to look to take his over, but when he's on the road, it's a little bit more of a defer to Kyrie, and Kyrie's going over. So those are 3 things that I'm going to be looking forward to over the next couple of weeks, kind of some big picture things that you can cash on.
So let me ask you a couple of follows on these, Andy. When it comes to PJ Tucker, the thing that stood out to me last night for Miami is that Yurtseven got no playing time at all. It was DNP coach's decision. He's been their starting center at times. He played very well. And PJ Tucker was still out there in the starting lineup, and he still got 27 minutes, even though his stats last night were fairly limited. So Tucker's still getting the playing time. Does that concern you here? The rebounds and assists might be there, even if the points aren't.
Yeah, the rebounds and assists could be there, but as we saw last night, he's just not an option. And I just go back to the early part of the year, that time frame from the 2nd through the 11th, where he wasn't getting any looks. He's not a part of a big part of the 3-point shooting game now. And the other thing we're seeing is Jimmy Butler is running the offense now that Lowry sat out last night. We saw a big game from Butler with the assists. And PJ Tucker's role is just different with Bam and Jimmy. His job is to guard on defense, and his production and stats have just fallen off. And that 5 points, it's so hard to get over a PRA if you're not scoring points. So if he's down around that 5 points mark, he's going to have a huge rebound and assist game. And with Jimmy Butler running the offense, he's not going to get many assists. And with Bam in there, he's going to struggle with rebounds as well, I think.
And when
Andy
it comes
and I
to
did
Devin
the NBA
Booker,
show.
Go
ahead, Ted.
I wanted to ask one more follow on the Devin Booker prop, because Booker's going over when the Suns are going over, and Booker's staying under when the Suns are staying under. Is there a correlation there? Would you look to bet the team total over or under based on Booker's numbers, based on the quality of opposition, or the full game over or under? Or is that just, hey, Devin Booker against bad teams is going to get his? But it seems to me that correlation there is not Booker, good teams, bad teams. It's Booker's going over when the Suns are going over. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, of course. You can correlate it any way you want. And it makes sense. Devin Booker, the big point scoring person on the Suns, if he's doing well, yeah, the Suns are probably doing well. If he's not doing good, yeah, the Suns are probably not doing good. For this particular player prop, I just really tried to dial it in and try and get it just into a more niche. And so when I saw the matchup yesterday, that was an easy overplay for me. He almost got it in the first quarter. He had 18 points in the first quarter. So if you think the Suns are going over, especially now that DeAndre Ayton has got an ankle issue, I don't know how much time he's going to miss or if he's going to miss any more games. But if he's out and you think the Suns are going to have a good game, Devin Booker over his points has got to be an automatic play. So I'd have to agree with you on that, Teddy, for sure.
Yeah, and Andy and I did the NBA tip-off show last night on WagerTalk TV. Of course, that's every day, 4:15 Eastern, right here on WagerTalk TV. So we'll have some more NBA talk. Tony Finn was quite confused because there's only 2 games tonight, so they told him they're going to talk some NBA futures. So there will be some NBA futures talk on the Tuesday show. So it's be a pretty good one, even though it's a limited card. But as Andy knows, I used the over in that Spurs game as my free play last night on the show, and I think it was 227 and a half. It closes 229, and it lands right 228. Booker had 48 last night, had a huge game. 220, 121, 107. But I also told Andy on the show last night there were 5 games to choose from That's Our Dog, and I didn't really like any of them. And only 2 dogs covered last night. And Tony Mahee and I jumped on the Thunder, and as Teddy knows, once again the Thunder just point spread machines this year. They have the 3rd fewest straight up wins in the league, but the 3rd best point spread record, like the Detroit Lions did basically this year in the NFL. Thunder squeaked it out again last night, a 2-point loss as an 11-point dog. So that's some big picture stuff for me to look at as well. And Andy, I love where you're going with, by the way, with the Harden prop. It makes so much sense with Kyrie playing the road games, not playing the home games. And that's why the prop market is so difficult for the odds makers, because it's not just about overall seasonal stats and single game current form. It's also about who else is in the lineup, about matchups for the other teams. And Andy does that better than anybody as far as digging in and finding the props. Speaking of which, Andy Lang, you are the $2 capper at WagerTalk.com because it's $2 Tuesday. You've got a strong NBA player prop tonight. As you mentioned, just 2 games on the board. You got one in one of them. Give us another one that was a free play here on the show in one of these 2 games tonight, something that you're looking at.
Yeah, it's a 4% play for us tonight. I was trying to figure out what rating I wanted to give it. So, get up in the morning, you look at, how did things go last night and where are your stats and where are your records and streaks. And 3% plays have been pretty good. 5% plays have been pretty good. But for whatever reason, 4% play lights out for us recently. So 76% on 4% plays in January. So I'm making this a 4% play. Got to strike while the iron's hot on this streak. That's up on WagerTalk.com for only $2. My free play for tonight, Saddiq Bey, under 16.5 points. We're seeing this with a lot of teams. It's kind of similar to the PJ Tucker situation where before all the COVID issues, when Detroit had their full team, he was a fantastic underplay on his points. Starting on November 1st through December 12th, he played in 20 games. He went over 16 points once. And then the Pistons lost a bunch of people. They were playing without their guards. And in the next 9 games, he goes over this total in 8 out of 9 games. Now the Pistons have their team back, and he's gone under this total in 6 out of 7 games. So we're back to the Saddiq Bey under train. And again, you're going to get a week or 2 until the books really adjust to this. And tonight, the Warriors allow the 6th least amount of points to opposing power forwards. So now that Detroit's got their Cade Cunningham and Killian Hayes and all those guys back, Saddiq Bey's under. It's a great play.
I mean, Bay's still getting the shot attempts, 17, 16, 14, 15, 11. He only had 9 last time out, but he didn't get a whole lot of playing time in a blowout loss in a game where they knew they were going to be hitting the highway immediately after. Do you worry that his shot attempts are still there, his 3-point attempts are still there, even though Detroit has a more complete roster now than they did a couple of weeks ago?
Well, the shot attempts, yeah. When it was just him and Diallo, they went for a couple of games where they were shooting 25, 30 shots.
Yeah.
It was insane. So yeah, the shot attempts are there, but we just see his percentage falling, and it's back to where it was in November and early December. And the other nice thing about when you're taking unders on a player that plays for a team like Detroit, the blowout scenario is always in play. So if you have an under on a guy and all of a sudden it's a 25, 30-point game, that starter may not see the light of day in the 4th quarter. So you always get that little bit of extra advantage that you don't really take into account in the handicapping. The Pistons can get blown out on any given night. And when they do, he's just not going to play. They're going to bring in the bench guys. So it's a little bit of added bonus when you're taking Saddiq Bey unders.
That's Andy Lang, the prop master, WagerTalk.com. And he's also the $2 prop master because it is $2 Tuesday, and he has the honor of being the $2 capper tonight. Big 4% best bet, as he said, 6-1 his last 7 NBA player props rated 4%, including a 76% current run on all 4% plays across the NBA since early January. Andy, best of luck tonight. $2 Tuesday, Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. Go get it right now. Get yourself a quick beverage. 20 seconds from now, Teddy Covers will be back after the break, and we're doing some college hoops, NBA transition into the college hoops, then some NHL talk after that. Teddy's got a Big Ten breakdown, big game breakdown between Wisconsin and Northwestern in 20 seconds.
Tuesdays is known as $2 Tuesdays at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, where you can get the hottest handicappers, best bet, or daily package for only $2.
Time for today's big game breakdown. Let's talk some Big Ten college hoops for tonight. Wisconsin and Northwestern. Right now, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, it's been Badgers money off the open, was 2.5 at the open. Now it's 2.5, 3. There were actually threes across the board earlier, so we have seen some buyback on Northwestern in the last half hour. The total's been bet up as well, open 137. Now we're looking at 140. And their leading indicator books are telling me this number could still go up, depending on whether Northwestern has their leading scorer in the lineup for the Wildcats. That's obviously a big concern. Pete Nance, leading scorer, was out for Northwestern's win at number 10 Michigan State over the weekend. And he's been, their leading scorer. He leads the team with rebounds. He has a block and a half per game. Certainly a guy who impacts the point spread in or out, and yet they just won their best win of the year, perhaps, without him on the floor. Of course, he didn't play particularly well against Wisconsin last year, and the betting markets right now are telling us it's very maybe for Nance this evening for this Northwestern squad. That being said, look, Northwestern did pull off a nice upset. They've had no success in this series. And by no success, their last win against Wisconsin came back in 2018. All right. The Badgers 5-0-1 against the number against Northwestern since that last Wildcats victory. And last year, 68 to 51 and 68 to 52, both comfortable victories, one here in Chicago and one in Madison. But the broader handicap here for me, the bigger picture, all right, this is a young Wisconsin team. They went to Ohio State and got bombed in their Big Ten road opener. I'm like, boy, we're going to bet against the Badgers on the road this year. And what's happened since then? They won straight up at Purdue as 13-point dogs. They won straight up at Maryland as underdogs. All they're doing right now is basically kicking ass and taking names. We have 6 consecutive wins for the Badgers since their last loss, 4 consecutive point spread covers for the Badgers, and the last 2 non-covers, -17, -17. Maybe you don't want to lay a big price with Wisconsin, but this is a team right now that is clicking on all cylinders, that has exceeded betting market expectations, that has a good track record against their opponent, and their opponent may well be shorthanded, and they're coming off a huge win. Yeah, if I'm playing, I'm laying. Give me the Badgers minus the spot against Northwestern this evening. And there is your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Well, first of all, that's great. I don't have to deal with any counterpoints or any arguments. I just get to come on and give my 2 picks and say, see you later. Thanks a lot for having me on.
I'll find a counterpoint, Andrew. Don't you worry.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it. The Carolina Hurricanes and the Boston Bruins going head-to-head tonight. Obviously, the Boston Bruins right now are rolling. Their top line is doing a lot of scoring for them right now. It seems like their defense is playing pretty well. They're on a pretty good streak. But I'm fading them tonight. I'm looking towards the underdog. There's a couple different reasons why, but one of the reasons I'll state here, guys, their goaltender tonight, Tuukka Rask. He's playing only his 2nd game this year in the NHL. He was a goalie that was injured. They didn't know if they were going to bring him back as far as the contract goes. He is back on a $1 million 1-year deal with them. He's a veteran with this team. He's back now playing his 2nd game, like I said, but his 2nd game is coming against the Carolina Hurricanes, one of the best teams in the entire league. His 1st game came against the Philadelphia Flyers, a much lower tiered opponent. He only allowed 2 goals, which was very impressive. But I feel like a Carolina Hurricanes team They had a lot of wins, then they lost 2. Now they got a win against Vancouver. It's nice to get humbled a little bit. And I feel like Carolina got humbled. I feel like they get going again here and get a win at a plus 115 price. Although Carolina has struggled in the Garden against Boston, I can't ignore it here. I'm going against the grain here with the underdog on Carolina.
Well, Carolina's this team. I mean, they have a phenomenal road record. The only team in the NHL with more road wins than the Panthers this year is the New York Rangers. Is Carolina a team that you're looking to back in this road dog role when you find them? Do you think they'll be winning games like this one on a fairly regular basis when you catch them at a plus price in the highway?
Absolutely, I do, Teddy. And it's very rare that we'll get a price like this for them on the highway, like you mentioned. It's one of the reasons I do like them. And we are running into a hot Bruins team, but Carolina, the best part about them, and the reason why they're so good on the road, is because out of every team that's at the top of their divisions, they don't rely on just 1 or 2 players, Teddy. They have several guys that can get the job done. It's one of the biggest things I look for in sports betting and in the NHL in particular. You can't just have a couple guys doing the bulk of the scoring. Carolina does not have that. They have a really deep team. Well, I think that people are starting to just put more respect towards Vancouver. They're also looking at Nashville being on the second half of a back-to-back and giving up 5 goals yesterday to St. Louis. And it's funny, guys, because yesterday on the Puck Time show, I kind of issued an apology to Nashville Predators fans because I've just been against them all year long, it feels like, and they've really kind of proved me wrong. But then again, yesterday, I still go against them, and I ended up getting that win. I gave out to clients for Nashville to miss the playoffs at a really, really good plus price. I still think it could happen, but they've done really well. Look, Nashville to me is a team, I talked about it with our last game. You need to have countless guys that can score. And I'm still a firm believer that if they don't have their key players, and they actually are without a key player tonight at Forsberg, Steve, which is, I guess, the reason for the move as well, then they can't do well. I believe they are not a team that can do scoring, that can score as collectively. And that really hurts them. Vancouver, here's the thing with them. I'm pretty sure whether you follow hockey or you don't, you know about the whole story with Vancouver. They fire their coach, and just in typical fashion, they go on a massive run. And they win a bunch of games in a row against top teams and lower tier teams. The thing is, they had a little slump, after that little break. The slump, guys, was against really good teams. Their schedule just got tough for a little bit. And that's the reason why they lost. Now, tonight, they're playing a Nashville team that does do well, play well defensively. But give me the underdog here with a team that's getting back into form, playing well defensively. I think it's a great spot here for them. Nashville have been involved in way too high scoring games. And I feel like Vancouver is too good defensively to fall into that trap of a high scoring game. I picture a 3-1, 3-2 victory here for the short dog.
So the one thing with Nashville, when you look at their numbers, are real close. When they play with no rest, they have a winning record and they go over the total. You're saying the no rest is not a factor tonight. You like Vancouver and maybe the under in this one. So is that something that is that random for Nashville that they trend to the over on back-to-backs and they have a winning record? Or is that something that bettors might want to be aware of?
Well, I don't think that those games are good for them, is what I'll say, Teddy. I don't think that long-term Nashville is a team that built to win high-scoring games. So I don't think that's a long-term success path for them. If this is a high-scoring game, I still favor Vancouver, but I think the difference is, you mentioned those overs with Nashville on the back-to-backs, and a lot of it's, I think, their defensive mistakes as well. I don't think Vancouver gets dragged into a, quote-for-quote track meet game like Nashville's been doing with certain teams, which is why I like the dog here. I think Vancouver's defenses will be a little bit too much, and Nashville could be eager to get back and bounce back tonight, but I think Vancouver's offense will get clicking, and I'm happy to come on here and give out 2 underdogs. I know there weren't big prices, guys, but 2 short dogs tonight.
So Andrew McInnis, WagerTalk.com. I think people are having trouble hearing me, so I'll keep it brief here so we can test it. Andrew, what you got going on at WagerTalk.com for Tuesday?
Well, I always recommend a day pass. Grabbing a day pass, $39, one play. For all three of us is $25. You can get a day pass for $39. Got some action on college hoops, 2 plays tonight, NBA, and of course it's a big night. Tuesdays are always a big night for me and the National Hockey League. But I want to give out this code, Steve, net299. Customer service has extended it another week for us hockey handicappers. Net299, rest of the season plus playoffs for $299. I was on an unbelievable run. It was like 73% last month and a half. Cooled off a little bit, but still 69% winners since mid-November in the NHL. I'll take that any day of the week, any month, and hopefully continue that roll. So 69% in the NHL since mid-November. Net $299 gives you the rest of the year $299.
It's a pretty good offer. $2 Tuesday is a good offer, but that's an even better offer in my opinion because it gets you the rest of the hockey season for just $299 net. Net $299. Andrew McInnis, WagerTalk.com. Thanks, Andrew, for joining us. And I was muted there for a second. People were worried I gave out a free 5%er, Teddy, but actually they did not miss much. There had to be a segment to mute me. Leading into 2 hockey games was the way to go. And that was about the most generic lead-ins I'd ever given. I actually kind of felt guilty. I was like, I'm kind of being lazy today. Man, my intuition is strong, isn't it? I didn't waste a word.
I'm proud of myself for finding follow-up questions, because I
did really good. Carolina, a good road team. I was like, good God, where's he getting this? Yeah, I was impressed when he said Carolina's been a good road team. I was like, you're doing your homework there. But, yeah, Andrew's great at hockey. That's what's great about it. Right, exactly. It took you your 2 seconds of research, right? No, but hey, look, seriously, that's what's great about WagerTalk.com, right? We got golf guys, we got prop guys like Andy Lang, we got hockey guys like Andrew McInnis. And what's great about WagerTalk today is we also got some Vegas guys like Dave Sharapan, Sportsbook Consigliere. I tongue twisted myself earlier today. I said Sportsbook Consigliere. That's a tough one, but how are you doing? And Dave, right out the gate, what were your thoughts of the new format for the NFL playoffs? I love the Monday Nighter. It wasn't a great game, but I love the fact they did it. Teddy, one thing I thought about, though, when we were talking about the Open, a little bit of a disadvantage, obviously, for those teams that have to play the Monday Nighter. I mean, it's always one less day, and in the playoffs, you could say that's a little unfair maybe. The Rams obviously coasted. But, Dave, big picture takeaway on the divisional round. Home teams went 5-1 straight up in ATS. They had not done well in this wild card round in years past, but it's a little different format now, and the divisional winners really came and played.
First of all, thank you for having me. Glad to be here. No Prez means no drama. Literally no drama. We're good with all of it. No drama in the weekend wild card round, right? There was 5-1 for the favorites. Pretty easy. Everybody's figured this out. You guys will probably be getting applications for people that want to be professional handicappers because, you can just pick the games. You don't even have to look at the lines. You just pick the games, pick the sides. Everybody had the Niners for the public dog. That got there as well. So I wish the games would have been a little more competitive, especially, it's been dubbed nighttime in Pittsburgh behind me. I got caught up when the Steelers actually thought I had a shot after the first quarter was 0-0. The defense is playing great. TJ picks that ball up and runs it in after Cam knocked it out. 7-0 Steelers. And I was like, one time. This would be an incredible upset. This would be great. And then the second quarter happened, and it was all over. It was done, 21-7 at halftime. My wife was sitting there next to me. She said, I told you. And I said, you're right. Again, you're right. They're always right. So now we get the most competitive weekend of the entire year. This has always been my favorite weekend in a risk room, in a sports book. You got mostly the best teams, or you have a team on the upstart that could actually win another game after this. The lines are tight. The totals come down. Well, all except for the Buffalo-Kansas City total. That total is tremendous. It's a video game total. But I can't wait. I turned the page. It's behind me. Last weekend, done. There's only 6 football games left of the NFL season. 4 of them are this weekend.
7 because you got to count the Super Bowl. Yeah. That's
7.
Kind of
there were 7 played. 6 games left, right? 4, 2, and 1.
6 that just got played.
6 played. 7. The math is, listen, I'll get messed up sometimes.
It's hard, man.
Dave, I'm going to have to knock your application here. Your wife's application for WagerTalk.com just went ahead in the pile here.
She can work in a risk room. She's been sitting here for years telling me what the line should be, asking me why this line should be that. She could work in a risk room tomorrow. She can make numbers. She does the whole deal. Yeah.
I love it.
So, Dave, I want to, before we look at the 4 games for this weekend, I do want to look back real quick. You said let's turn the page, but it looked to me like it was kind of an innocuous weekend for the books. There wasn't any really bad decisions. The books didn't get buried in any games. There wasn't any great decisions for the house. What do you think was the best game for the house? What do you think was the worst game for the house in NFL action this past weekend?
Well, I mean, the only people that were on the Eagles were, all the sharps, quote unquote sharps, the professional money. I mean, that number bottomed out, went from 9 to 7, and the books could have used the Eagles to cover, and didn't get there. But the game staying under really helped in a couple of them. So there weren't any, complete burials. I mean, it's just another day in the books. It's crazy because you had the games, and it's the playoffs, and handle is up, but you get a lot of two-way action. So no major, for the books in Vegas, the Raiders not covering was pretty good because it was really a lot of bets on the Raiders in town. Like the books were hopping. I was in a couple places on Saturday, and I was like, man, we've become a Raider town. We actually have a home team. It was strange to see and feel, but the entire place was dressed in Raider gear. I mean, it was loud. Like at the kickoff, there's a lot of people rooting for the Raiders. I think last night's game didn't really do anybody any favors. But the one that probably hurt the most, I guess, was San Francisco, because they won outright and they were the dog that everybody had, and they bet that one like they bet the Super Bowl every year. They take the dog on the money line and the favorite minus the short number. So I think I hadn't talked to anybody yet specifically to really know. But there was no oh boy, we got buried, or oh wow, we had a great day. Yeah, it was probably one of those days.
Yeah, I mean, I think what would have really hurt him had been the Cowboy game landing on 3 or that Buck game landing on 8, right? Because like you said, Tampa Bay, a lot of square money. At least what I saw public on Tampa. Yet that line dropped, as you said. I think the public somewhat was back in the 49ers, and that line went up to 3.5 at kickoff on Dallas. A lot of teaser liability probably on Tampa as well. So it would have been interesting. But yeah, I think the books kind of washed on those two. Dave, let's look at next weekend. First game off the bat. This is the most sure 100% lock in the history of football, is that the Cincinnati game would be at 4:30 Eastern on Saturday once again. Every year it's the Bengals, Texans at 4:30 Eastern, and the Titans. When you got Titans, Bengals, this is like those Texans-Bengals playoff games 5-6 years ago. I mean, it's a 100% lock. They want to bury this game as much as possible. Cincinnati, I was looking at the stats here. Cincinnati has not turned the ball over in their past 5 games. I didn't even realize that. Tennessee hasn't turned it over in their past 3. So something's got to give here. Look at this game. Open 3 up to 3.5. Now, obviously, a critical move there. Total 47 across the board. What are your thoughts on Bengals, Titans, and big picture thought also on the layoff we mentioned? Tennessee more of a run-based team, so maybe it doesn't affect them quite as much as others.
So Saturday's great because it has both teams that are coming off a bye. And for 2 decades, for years in the book, you see this happen every time. The public forgets about the team that was on the bye. You fall in love with the team that just won, and they come and they end up betting the team that just won, despite the fact that the team with the bye earned the bye because they're the number 1 seed. Now in the NFL, they are the only team to get the bye. So I think the number's perfect. 3-47 makes perfect sense because Cincinnati can go win this game. There's no question about it. They took a big step beating the Raiders at home in a playoff game. For Burrow, for the offense, for the defense, for the coach, for everybody. That's a big win. Do I think they can win the game on the road? Of course they can. Do I think they will? Not really. I think you're gonna see the bad guys will come in. They've already moved this thing off of 3. What happened with the Dallas and San Francisco game is they've gone on 3, and there was a real reluctance to move it either way all week. I was happy to see this thing got off the 3 right away because now we can get actually a little more two-way action. And, maybe sweat the number, but, the games, you saw it, they don't fall on the number very often. So I never booked the games that way. I never worried about getting sided or getting middled. 3 is the one you got to worry about the most, and sometimes that's a sweat in itself. But I'm leaning Tennessee as of today. It's Tuesday. I want to see if Derrick Henry is back. I want to see video. I want to know. I want to hear from somebody that, like, he's really good. And that really will help me decide 100% it's Tennessee, but I'm leaning Tennessee as of today.
So 3 more NFL games to discuss with Dave Sharapan, and then I'm going to ask him for something actionable for hoops this evening. We got the Packers, who've taken the early money against the 49ers. We have the Bucks and the Rams sitting at 3 pretty much everywhere right now. There's still some 2.5s out there. And the Chiefs, less than a field goal at home against the Bills. Talk to me about where you think these lines are going to go between now and Sunday, and any quick thoughts on the games themselves.
So, I mean, we saw the Green Bay number already go, right? That open 4.5. It's 5.5, 6s now, pretty much painted, like 6 everywhere. Not surprised at all. I think Green Bay is the best team, and I think this is the Aaron Rodgers revenge tour. I think he's taking it out on everybody, and I like Green Bay to win the game. I got to know if Bosa's playing. I think they're betting that he's not. Again, the total's 47.5. You don't see nearly as much line movement in games in these playoffs as we get closer than you did during the regular season. So I telling people for a week, on my daily show and on different Twitter things, and people call me, like, don't get caught up in a line movement and thinking that's the right side, because every line that moved a certain direction on the weekend lost. Every single move lost. Doesn't mean it always does. It just means it did last week. I don't think this line's moving much, Teddy. I think we've gotten to the number. If you peak at a 7, I think it's going to be a huge play on the Niners. The total's floating. It's going to float around here, 47, 47.5, maybe 48, and back down. We'll bet on the weather. That didn't work out so good over the weekend either. It was supposed to be this big weather event down in Tampa. Didn't happen. And then the cold, all the stuff we heard about Buffalo, that didn't happen. Don't worry about the weather. Rams in Tampa. Truthfully, I'm surprised. I thought this would be on the other side of 3. I really thought this would be on the other side of 3. So maybe I'm missing something, and maybe it will get on the other side of 3. But it opened 2.5 with juice in places, 2.5 flat. It's painted 3 now, which is probably the right number. But I mean, isn't Tampa going to win this game? Tampa's going to win this game. If they don't, it's because of the defense. It's because the Rams can go win it, and we'll hear all week Stafford hasn't won anything. We just won a playoff game. And if they run the ball at all, like they did against Arizona, they're going to win this game too. Great game. Total's 48.5. Feels a little bit high right now. Probably be leaning under. Got to find out a little bit more about injuries and if anybody is coming back to help Brady a little bit more there. And Buffalo KC, this is the preview to the AFC champion. I mean, this is everybody's favorite game. The total's 55. It's still not high enough. They played before and went over this total. They're going to play again and probably go over this total. The goal of both teams is to score 35, and that may not be enough to win this game. I hope it lives up to the billing. The line is perfect. If you put 3, you're going to get all the Buffalo money. If you put 2, you're going to get the Kansas City money, and you did. It bounced from 2.5 to 2. It's going to bounce from 2.5 to 2. First book that shows a 3, Teddy. The first book that shows a 3. I don't think there's going to be one. But if there are, that one will 100% be telling every book in the world they need to build gigantic if they go to 3.
Yeah, and once again, the AFC Championship rematch from last year, of course, that game. And then the other game Sunday, as you mentioned, Rams, Bucks. I was also surprised, like you guys, that the line wasn't above 3.5, because you figure Tampa's home field is worth 3 to 3.5 in the playoffs, and they are considered the better team. I think there's some recency bias there from last night's strong showing from the Rams. What do you disagree with there, Teddy?
They know Lambeau in 0 degrees isn't worth 3.5 points in the NFL right now. There's no home field worth
NFL
3.5 points.
Maybe not anymore. NFL playoffs for decades, home field was like 4 points in the playoffs. But I mean, maybe that has changed because home field's worth a lot
all the
less.
home teams won and covered, so maybe I'm wrong.
Well, no, but you're right. If you look at the last 5 to 10 years, home field in the regular season's gone from like 3 to 1, basically. So there is the regular season has definitely dropped.
It's gotten less and less.
Playoffs have changed, Dave. Do you think that has changed for the playoffs as well?
Well, I mean, we got to throw out the COVID year because there was nobody in the stands and there was not. It had a different feel. I mean, the away teams were able to hear everything. There was no noise factor. There was no. I mean, I don't know. You guys watch the games. I mean, the officials sometimes get caught up in the momentum of the game and flags come out like late or against the visiting team with the home team. Like it's strange, but it's gone. Like there's one or two, I think, fields. Kansas City's one of them. They still got a home field advantage there. There's no question about that. Buffalo, I believe, still has a home field advantage. But yeah, the other ones, maybe not as much. Obviously, Green Bay is a huge home field advantage on a Saturday night in the cold outside. Yes, it's not the same as it used to be, 100%.
Yeah, and keep in mind also Tampa at home last week, an extra day. LA traveling on a short week as well, so maybe that's worth a little something. Dave, real quick on the way out, any actionable info for tonight? NBA, NHL, anything you're looking at?
Hold on. Steve, you got to give Teddy. You're not reading the Slack. What are you doing right now? Teddy said he was going to get some actionable info out of me.
He's crossing the signals. Teddy knows he's crossing the signals on me right now.
I did. The issue with why this line is so low for Tampa is the offensive line concerns for the Bucs against
big time
dominant defensive line. Tampa,
big time.
Two key starters out, and that's why we're seeing this line shorter than we thought it was going to be. Is the matchup at the line of scrimmage?
Yes.
Dave, anything actionable for tonight before we let you go?
Well, I saw you had McInnis on before me. McInnis, by the way, I met in person for the first time last month. This kid is like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah,
man, is he a big dude? And I was like, wait a second, I didn't even realize you were that tall. You can't tell the height on this thing. I mean, and that's good for President.
Tony's Finn is tall apparently too, Dave. I saw a picture of Finn. I didn't realize he was tall. I've never met him in person.
Finn, I've never met in person, but I've talked to. I knew he was tall just from the sound of his voice. I thought Prez was taller than he was, but that's a whole different story. Actionable info today. I think you got some bad hockey games today as far as competitive wise. But Tampa is going to beat the Kings tonight. You can probably play it on the puck line. Tampa's been an over machine as well. I like Tampa and the over. It's kind of chalky, but I mean, in the spirit of the Prez, you can get that one. Islanders and Flyers under, okay, for the hockey. You might find 5. I'm not afraid of the 5. Prez and I like to go back and forth. He says when you see a 5, you automatically bet it over. I don't always agree. I don't agree. I think the Islanders keep that game under. Kind of a toss-up with the side. I think the Flyers are live. But NBA, there's only 2 games, and I'm taking a day off. Basketball, college basketball, though. Baylor and West Virginia, a little bit later today. Baylor struggling, right? They're laying points on the road. West Virginia coming off a loss. I think West Virginia's live today, plus the 6.5. Back to you guys. Flicks.
Dave Sharapan saying, take a look at the West Virginia Mountaineers plus the points in college hoops action tonight against the former number 1 Baylor Bears. Dave, great info as always. Really appreciate you coming on, giving us your thoughts from the other side of the counter. So many handicappers. It's good to have someone giving us opinions from the bookmaker standpoint. We really appreciate your time and effort each and every week. At SportsBKConsig on Twitter. What would you like to promote before we let you off the show?
Headed right now to my other daily podcast. It's called Bostonian versus the Book. Me and Matt Peralt go back and forth every day about what's going on in the world of sports betting and different lines and all these other things. So we do that every day. Obviously, my podcast is called Cash Considerations. We have a YouTube channel as well, trying to do a lot of the same stuff that's going on here. Different way. Newbie, Carl are the main characters along with myself. It's a fun look. We throw in some songs every once in a while. So we do that every week. That's available. 8 in a Box is another football podcast. And then every night on Sports Grid TV and Sirius XM Radio 159 from 4 to 7 West, 7 to 10 East. It's in-game live. We get to watch the games, talk about the lines, and kind of, look at a game and watch Kyler Murray flip a ball underhand to somebody, and I got to be on and say, this game is over. You can bet the Rams right now for whatever you want. The only thing in question is whether the game goes over the total at this point.
It's a great show, and I will be on, I believe, Friday with you, Dave. Make a little Friday
every
appearance
Friday. Now, Merrill's making an appearance. We get on, we listen to Gabe laugh and tell stories. Basically, we're an audience for his stand-up routine. He asks us every once in a while what we think about a game, but we set up the quad box and we have a good time.
It's Gabe tells the story, Cam laughs. We hear Cam laugh while Gabe tells the stories, and then
and we just
Dave
sit there
and
and look at each other
give some
like
actual info. It's a quad box. What do you expect? The Shady Bunch, right? The Shady Bunch. But yeah, Dave Sharapan, a busy man. Sports Grid Radio, channel 159, and Sports Grid TV, as he mentions, a great starting place to find him. And then, of course, Twitter, Sports BK Consig. Dave, great to see you, my man. I will see you Friday, hopefully, and stay out of trouble in the meantime. Teddy, you stay out of trouble in the meantime. And the Prez, we know he's not staying out of trouble. I'll be back tomorrow on Wednesday and the rest of this week at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Quick reminder, it is $2 Tuesday, as I said, at WagerTalk.com. Andy Lang, he's a prop master. He's got an NBA prop. But I forgot to mention SportsMemo.com. It is $1.67 Tuesday at SportsMemo.com because you're getting 3 cappers, 3 5% best bets for $5 total. That's $1.67 for each 5% play from Dr. Chuck, John Ryan, and Jesse Schul. 3 best bets for just $5 at SportsMemo.com. And, of course, Andy Lang, $2 Tuesday. Teddy Covers and myself also at WagerTalk.com. Steve Merrill, Teddy Covers. Thank you to Andy. Thank you to Andrew. Teddy, take us home.
Sure, that's going to wrap it for the Tuesday edition. We'll do it again tomorrow, same time, same channel, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Between now and then, enjoy the games and good luck.
Tuesdays is known as $2 Tuesdays at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, where you can get the hottest handicappers, best bet, or daily package for only $2.